from age to age. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth. Love ends, but what if it doesn't? Be thou with us now and always. I have only one picture of him. We will not see it, none of us. Behold, peace shall extend like a river. I offer you this jumble of words drawn from the music and poetry of this our All Souls Day service as an invocation of the great cloud of witness and memory that is present today. Today we celebrate All Souls, All Hallows Eve, All Saints, Day of the Dead, Samhain. In many of the world's traditions, it is a time for remembering the dead. The neo-pagan Starhawk describes it as when the veil is thin between the worlds. It is a holy day when we recall that our communion is more than just those present with us. Community, in her words, encompasses those who have gone before and those who will come after. In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we name the day All Souls for two reasons. First, we speak of all souls as an acknowledgement that all of humanity, all of life, and all of being shares a common destiny. We are born, we live our span, we die. President or pauper, poet, painter, priest, professor, pie maker, or pipe fitter. Once we were, and sometime again we shall not be. All Souls reminds us that we are caught in the same cycle of life. It began long before any of us. Its origins are lost in the faintest echoes of the birth of the cosmos. We can speak of the star whose dust we are. We can try to cast our minds back farther and imagine the incomprehensible origin point of all, the Big Bang. We can rest our imaginations on the beginnings of life on this planet or on the obscurities of our own immediate ancestors' lives. Mystery. Whatever place we choose, the beginning of all life, even our own lives, is wrapped in mystery. The same is true with our endings. No one really understands what happens after death. It is the great undiscovered country. All of us will one day travel to it. All Souls. The second day we hold it as a holy day is to recollect a core Unitarian Universalist principle. We assert that every life has inherent worth and dignity. This is not to naively claim that human nature is intrinsically good. History is filled with too many monsters. Our contemporary world contains too many demagogues and would-be dictators. It would be wrong to state that all people are good in a society where elected officials like the Speaker of the House, or anyone else for that matter, fears for their lives from political violence. No, to claim that every human life has inherent worth and dignity is to recognize that we each share kinship with every member of the great family of all souls. There are no different categories of human beings. President or pauper, poet or painter, priest or professor, pie maker or pipe fitter, we are each born with possibility. We each make our unique contribution to the unfolding story that is human history. Some are worth celebrating. We benefit so much from the discoveries of science, the beauties of art, the advances of medicine, the glories of music, the feats of engineering that have shaped our lives for the better. Some of what we humans have done is horrifying. The genocide, the exploitation, the suffering that we inflict upon each other, so much of it is awful beyond whatever words I might cast before you. Yet it is all part of our human story. To say that every human life has inherent worth and dignity is to acknowledge that each person makes a contribution to human society. These contributions need to be recognized. If they have benefited us, then they need to be identified as worth lifting up. And if they have caused suffering, we are challenged to honor the suffering that has brought us to this point. We will not dwell here on suffering for this All Souls, for my homily must be short, and we have music to return to. Instead, I want to cast back to words from our poems to remind us that to speak of All Souls is to invoke the full complexity of our ancestors. It is to confess that our lives and the lives of our descendants, be they descendants by blood or by culture, will be complicated too. We had Ada Limon telling us, "You can't sum it up, a life." She celebrates her grandfather and her grandmother, whose remaining span is short. There's Jenny Luo with her fragmentary memories of an uncle who died second. He opens his mouth to laugh, and I reach in to steal sour, sweet starfruit, half eaten. What is it, the poet seems to ask us, that remains of her father's brother? He has left his imprint upon the great family of All Souls. Its outlines are hard to discern, but it is there, like one of the twinkling stars whose faint light form the full glory of the night sky. And then we find Kenneth Rexroth's poem for Eli Jacobson. Limon and Liao are both young, living poets. Rexroth is dead. He was one of the great poets of the anti-communist left. He spent his life trying to imagine the golden age. He wrote about world literature, translated poems from Chinese, Japanese, Latin, Greek, Spanish, and French. I have learned much from him. For Eli Jacobson remembers the life of a friend who was murdered by one of Stalin's agents. It's a favorite morning poem of mine. It speaks of the difficult times, the times when hope is all but impossible to find, and what good can still be found there. And yet there are things about the poem that do not read well, things that I don't like. Its conceptions of gender are dated. It objectifies women. It is the work of a white man from the middle of the last century, and it includes many of the flaws of thought found in 1952. But there is still much to the poem, which returns us to All Souls. We celebrate All Souls. We recognize that everyone who has gone before us has made the world that is. All are part of the great cloud of witness and memory that surrounds us. Not just the best, not only the worst, but all souls and all aspects of them. This is the challenge before us today, and it is the challenge found in all of the days of our lives. We are called to recognize the truth of our being, that we owe something to all the souls that came before us. We are then challenged to hold on to what is true and good and lift up the best, while struggling to set aside what should be set aside. We do so in hopes that we can be part of building a world where, as our choir sang, justice shall dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness shall abide in the fruitful field. All Souls, before we conclude with music and song, I invite you into prayer. O Spirit of life, that some of us name God and others describe as the force that drives life forward, the power of love, or the highest aspiration in the human heart, be with us. Stir within us this hour and in all the days of our lives, so that we might each do what we can to take responsibility for passing on the best and setting down the worst, so that when future generations speak of All Souls, they might number us amongst those who remembered the profound truth. We are all connected to each other, all children of the same long-dead stars, and all members of the great family of all souls. May we recall this truth and do what we can to leave a more beautiful world behind for those who will come next. That it might be so, I invite the congregation to say, Amen.